Saturdays were when my grandmother would go to the store to buy all the things she needed for our big Sunday dinners. That's what I thought about when I saw the faces of the victims of that racist mass shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York. Roberta Drury, Marcus Morrison, Andre McNeil, Aaron Salter, Geraldine Talley, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Macy, Pearl Young, Ruth Whitfield. They were buying food for themselves and the people they loved. And that grocery store, it was the only one in that neighborhood. Black residents there had fought years to have access to a store like Tops. They're now not only traumatized by the horror of this racist attack, but back to traveling outside of their neighborhoods for something that should be a simple American right. The show you're about to hear is about that right that so many Black and brown communities in America still don't have access to. Fresh foods that nourish us and the ability to create our own food sources. This episode was recorded before that tragedy in Buffalo. Our condolences to the Buffalo community and our nation. Do you remember your first birthday party as a kid? This pandemic over the last few years has prevented us from throwing parties like that for our kids. So recently, when our son turned 9, we decided to give him a backyard celebration where he could be in charge of what to serve all his friends. And of all the possibilities, you know what this kid said he wanted?
I wanted to have McDonald's because it's my favorite fast food place, and I think their food tastes good.
Why do you think their food tastes good? What is it about it?
It just tastes chemically, and I like that.
Wait. Like, describe what chemically tastes like, and I'm a little bit horrified.
Like dry.
Man, as crazy as this sounds, I totally understand. There are 2 things I wanted more than anything as a kid and never got: a Cabbage Patch Kid and a birthday party at the Golden Arches. So we went big. I ordered loads of fries, hamburgers, and plenty of chicken nuggets, placed them on these cute golden trays I found at the dollar store, and proudly walked out to the backyard, fully expecting the kids to come running, screaming with delight. Well, did you notice at your birthday party, not everybody was into it? I thought all your friends would eat all of the food and nobody, like we had so many hamburgers and fries left. Why do you think that is?
'Cause I think their parents didn't want them to fill up on junk food.
I know. That's like us. We don't want you to fill up on junk food either.
Yeah.
I even heard one of the parents say to another on the way out, "Now where are we going to get some real food?" I get it. I mean, for a long time, McDonald's and fast food more broadly held this prominent space in Black and brown communities.
McDonald's may not provide food that can give long-lasting nourishment, but I think that the fast food industry satiates something in us, and I think that it's the desire for there to be easy answers to our social problems.
Social problems like access to fresh foods, time to make our own meals. I mean, fast food makes things easier, right? But we also know it comes at a cost. And as we learn more about the importance of nutrition and nourishment, what are the ways we can better connect to our food sources? And what disconnected us from them in the first place? That's the topic we're taking on this episode of Truth Be Told. Stay with us. Growing up in Chicago, Georgetown professor Marcia Chatelain was always fascinated by McDonald's.
McDonald's, I often tell my students, before the age of cell phones, is where we would all kind of gather to get going. So for me, going to a McDonald's was about my adolescence and my independence, but it was also a gateway to learning a lot of Black history. The first time that I read a serious piece of Black history in high school was because the local McDonald's franchise organization, Black franchisees, had sponsored a quiz bowl called Know Your Heritage.
I had a similar experience. In Detroit, I grew up within walking distance of several fast food spots, but grocery stores with fresh food? We had to drive across city lines to find that. Urban farmer Adrienne Wilson, who grew up in Los Angeles, calls this a food swamp.
So a food swamp is where you are oversaturated with processed foods, right? So those usually go hand in hand. If you don't have natural foods, or access to natural foods or grocery stores in that area, you probably have a lot of McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC, Popeyes.
Yeah, that's how I grew up.
Right, all around you. Mm-hmm. And that's all you know.
I thought for a long time that maybe this was part of some grand plan. Because wouldn't it be just as easy to have a grocery store in place of one of these fast food chains? Well, Dr. Marcia Chatelain says, in a way, it was part of a grand plan. In her Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Franchise, The Golden Arches in Black America, Marcia reveals the influx of McDonald's in Black communities is directly tied to initiatives to build Black wealth after the signing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. The message was that owning a McDonald's franchise or working there would be like a key that would unlock educational opportunities and economic freedom.
So a lot of it in the 60s and 70s was like, we are cool too. We are also down. We have afros and bell bottoms. And then in the 1980s, it was really about how McDonald's is creating Black wealth. In the early 1990s, they created the series of Calvin ads to show that it is still cool to work at McDonald's.
Oh, baby, I'm so proud of you.
It's only afternoons.
But still, it's a promotion.
I gotta get back to work.
Guess what, Anna?
Calvin is the new manager at McDonald's.
Straight up.
But to also capitalize on the fact that in the 90s, there was so much very racist reporting about super predators and gang members.
For real?
Calvin?
Calvin, they used to hang out on the corner?
So you own McDonald's?
No, not yet.
And it was supposed to be an inversion of this idea that Calvin is this kid on the streets, but McDonald's gives him the discipline and gives him something to hope for. And so during this time, there was a lot of suggesting that you can work your way from being a cashier to owning a franchise. Today, that is really, really difficult to happen. And although all the fast food brands say, this person started as a cashier and now they own several restaurants, the capital you need to franchise a McDonald's escalated over this period of time. And so you see fewer commercials saying that. And what they'll say now is, we give college scholarships, that, fighting against the critique that it's a dead-end job, but rather saying it's a job that gives you access to benefits to move on with your life. And so that's how that messaging has shifted.
You asked this question, how did McDonald's, this largely suburban fast food restaurant, become such a mainstay in urban, primarily Black and brown communities? And what you found is that it actually started during the Civil Rights era and the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, when we think of Dr. King's assassination, we think of the gravitas of the moment and the confusion and the outrage people had over his loss. And I think very few people really understand that this was an entry point for people to start thinking about Black-owned businesses as a solution to the distress that people are experiencing. And so after King's assassination, there was a call for Black capitalism, more Black ownership of businesses, and the McDonald's Corporation seized that moment to start recruiting Black franchise owners in predominantly Black neighborhoods.
And to put this year, 1968, into even greater context, you say that Black Americans had only gained access to public accommodations a few years prior to this. So the ability to own a McDonald's franchise was really a big deal.
Lately I've been comparing it to, the opportunity to franchise a McDonald's in 1968 if you are Black, if you have grown up in the Jim Crow South, if you have been terrified to stop at a restaurant, if you have ever experienced the humiliation of being refused service, and then all of a sudden you have access to the most important American brand, the first publicly traded fast food company, it's unbelievable. And so I think that it's important for us to take really seriously why this intervention with McDonald's in Black America is so important for our understanding of race and consumerism and marketplace and the unfinished business of civil rights.
I mean, going back, though, to the late 60s, when we started to see this effort, this push, this momentum to build Black wealth, I mean, President Nixon even advocated, as you write, for Black capitalism. Why was there an emphasis on fast food versus, say, grocery stores or fresh food places?
A lot of the uprisings in the 1960s, when there was property damage on grocery stores, those stores had such slim margins, and a lot of those grocery stores shuttered and said that they would not go back into the community. During that period of time, for the purposes of small business administration programs and programs where people could access capital for businesses, grocery stores were not considered small business. And so fast food franchises were. And the capital that McDonald's had behind it to take this risk and go into communities that had not been served by business was a lot more certain than the supermarket industry. And so there you see kind of the origins of some of the issues that we have today. But in addition to that, the thing that's also interesting is that for a really long time, Black people have organized not only about access to fresh foods and good grocery stores, but, there had long been complaints that in Black neighborhoods, the quality of groceries were more expensive and of lower quality. And so, the grocery store had always been a real site of tension. And so I think that a lot of people assume that, fast food just replaced the grocery stores and the grocery stores were great. The grocery stores were also a place where people had to protest and fight to get access to good foods, even when they were in the community.
What's your sense of the perception of McDonald's in Black communities today?
I had several birthday parties at McDonald's. And for me, as a city kid, it was because you lived in apartments. You didn't have a big house to have people over. And kids loved it when I was a kid. Like having a birthday party at McDonald's was like the thing to do.
Right.
But some things have changed. One, I think people of our generation who have, maybe more wealth now than they grew up with, or maybe the same, they don't feed their kids McDonald's. Their kids have a really diverse palate by the time that they're 9. So it's not just they don't like McDonald's, it's they're eating fast casual. They're introduced to foods that, when we were young, we only saw like on TV, like sushi. I remember I was in college or after college, I had sushi for the first time. And, my friend from college tells me her kids can eat $80 worth of sushi, like in one sitting and not even blink. Right. And so I think some of it is the ways that fast food is tied to class. That a lot of educated Black and brown folks that I know, they don't take their kids to McDonald's. And if they do, it's because they're traveling or because a grandparent is involved.
What happened to McDonald's push? I think it was a little more than a decade ago when many fast food places, not just McDonald's, were offering these healthier choices like salads and fruits. It really seems like that has been dialed back quite a bit.
Well, I think because people didn't want it. You don't go to McDonald's to have a chef salad.
You don't go there for that. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. But also it's a tough, structurally, it's a really tough thing to offer because what makes McDonald's possible is there's a lot of shelf-stable products and a lot of products that are frozen and then prepared. But if you're trying to bring in fresh lettuce for salads, you have to create a whole new kind of assembly lines for people to pre-pack the salads for the lunchtime rush. A lot of these innovations they really struggled with, and a lot of these things had to be, ended or changed because of the pandemic and supply chain. So fast food may not be the most sophisticated, but its meanings, its preparation, its system is incredibly nuanced.
We are currently at the Crenshaw Farmers Market on a lovely Saturday.
I recently met up with urban farmer Adrienne Wilson in South Central LA, which is considered a food desert. According to the nonprofit Story Maps, there are more than 750,000 people who live here, but only 7 grocery stores. Adrienne grew up here, and in her 20s, she had a wake-up call. After years of overworking and eating fast food and convenient foods, Adrienne's body shut down.
I started getting cramps in my stomach. I wasn't really digesting well. I know it's not something that people like to talk about, but I wasn't really having my movements as much as I should on a regular basis. And that, I'm telling you, that will tell you everything.
Right? It'll change everything.
It will change everything. Yeah. And so then I was just I was cramping. And I was like, all right, I have to go to the doctor. I went to the doctor and they were like, you have an ulcer, ma'am. You have to take these antibiotics stat. You have to rest for a week. So I took off 3 days of work and I had to rest. And then they were just like, you have to make some different lifestyle decisions. You have to change your lifestyle.
And so she did. That health scare was the seed that got her on the path to creating Feed Our Soul, an organization built on creating access to community gardens and nutritional health.
See now, and look at this big bunch of kale. Look at this big, beautiful bunch.
Adrienne studied restaurant hospitality and food systems at Georgetown University, and it got her thinking about home. She does cooking demonstrations here at the Crenshaw Farmers Market, using fresh ingredients to show young people how to prepare their own meals. She also creates gardens and hydroponic farms in schools throughout Los Angeles.
I really got into it when I was trying to understand the cost of restaurants, because that was my dream. I wanted to open my own restaurant, and still do. But I was like, well, why does this food cost so much money? I don't understand why mint costs $10 for 3 ounces. I don't understand. It just didn't compute in my mind. I was like, if this stuff comes from the ground, why am I charging so much? And it's because of cost of delivery, right? Transportation. It's cost of someone else growing it for you. It's cost of it making it into your ecosystem, and then you have to use it properly. And because it has a shelf life, right? So all those things come into effect when you think about our food ecosystem. And I was just like, this is wrong. When you think about slaves, we brought seeds back from the motherland to grow so that we can have familiarity, things that connect us back to our home. And so that was I was just like, we have to fix this. And especially because it affects Black people so directly.
Right.
It affects us so directly. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and I, was fortunate enough to be able to go to a school in the West Side.
For those who aren't from LA, because the West Side is more affluent. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they have more grocery stores.
Yeah.
They have all the Whole Foods. They have the good produce.
Yeah.
And when I saw it here, but it didn't compute in my mind, when I'm like, oh yeah, my dad's like, oh, I got to get up and go to the store at 7:00 in the morning, but I have to drive all the way to Westchester. And I just didn't think about it. But looking back, I'm like, he shouldn't have had to do that. We all should never have to do that.
Was this something that you understood from the start, to meet people where they are, or was this a process through your work that you realized? Yes.
Absolutely a process through my work. But not everybody knows that. Not everybody understands that they live in a food desert or in a food swamp. It's not even in their awareness, right? They're just like, this is the food that I have. I only have $4 and I have to feed 3 mouths. how can I feed my children? Right?
And it's legitimate.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And some people have those lives where they are working 2-3 jobs just so that they can get their food stamps. And what can you get on food stamps? Not much, because I've been on them and I know you can't get much. So it's like, how do we fix it so that people can have access to the food so that it doesn't have to be a strain?
What does it mean to decolonize our connection or maybe our food systems? What does that mean for you?
Oof, that is a good question. To decolonize the food system, I kind of see it in 2 prongs. I see it as, first, to take back a little bit of the consumerism, really being conscious of where your dollars are going, like supporting local farmers markets or supporting local businesses. And I think it also has an unlearning with your habits and our connection with agriculture, right? I think that we have to not look at it as a bad thing, that we do come from farmers. We farm these things that are now, staples and necessities in our life. And I know that it is tied to such a hurtful history, but there is beauty in it as well.
Maybe this moment is such an important one because we're far enough away to be able to connect to those good things about our people who were enslaved, but we have the agency to take those beautiful things and make something even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is our duty, right? For the future generations. I feel like we are in such a prime space for us to unlearn all the things that we were taught and choosing to do something that benefits us directly. And yes, it can eventually benefit the world, but they're not looking out for us, so we got to look out for ourselves. And how do we do that? And especially in the food industry, in the food space, it is taking it back. And it's understanding that you can control a tiny little plot of land can produce so much for you and your families and for your children. And it's something to do, something to pull you away from the electronics, something to get you outside, breathe some fresh air.
Right. When I was a little girl, for a moment, we had a garden in the back, and we were actually growing all types of things, including corn stalks. And we had like 4 or 5 corn stalks in the city of Detroit. But I was so proud of that thing.
Exactly.
I mean,
so proud
yes.
of it. You're like, I don't know what I can bring, but I got corn.
Right.
And that's how it used to be. That's the whole idea of a potluck, right? Mm-hmm. That farmer brings corn, you bring tomatoes, you bring lettuce, you bring potatoes. Let's all bring all of our abundance together and we all can have a feast, right? But it takes that community of all of us working together. So that's why it's little steps. It's little steps, little seeds that you're planting all around. And eventually we will grow and become a beautiful tree. All you need is a window. If you got a window, you can grow. I only have one window in my apartment, and all my plants
are lined up.
lined up.
What are you growing in the window that's not your plants?
Well, I actually don't have any herbs right now. I have a different type of herb.
I got it. I know, girl. Yeah. Hey, look, Hudson. There are more strawberries growing over here.
Wow, that's cool.
If you were to grow anything out here that we don't have out here, what would you grow?
Corn,
How come?
so I can make popcorn.
We may not be growing much in our home garden, but we are trying to do that thing Adrienne is talking about.
Right. That would be kind of nice. What else?
Carrots.
Okay. That's still going down as your favorite vegetable right now, huh?
Yeah.
What about broccoli?
No. It's too hard to eat.
Growing your own food is not easy. And the truth is, a home garden is not going to feed a community or solve the problem of food deserts and swamps. But maybe it'll build up for our children a stronger connection to the foods they eat. Marcia Chatelain thinks about this too, especially in the context of her own son, who just celebrated a birthday.
I think for me, when we think about Black liberation, it's the ability to experience the fullness of what life has to offer without any hesitation, without fear, without anxiety, and with the knowledge that the choices we make and the things that we embrace won't be violently taken away from us. Last year I had adopted a baby boy who's like the cutest. And I think
Marcia, congratulations.
Thank you. Oh my God. I'm going to have to, I will email pictures. See, now that you said that, just the cutest kid that ever lived and just so sweet. He had his first birthday a few weeks ago and it was, I didn't know what to expect. It was like the best day of my life. We played Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday and he had his little Cookie Monster cake. And it was, I have been so fortunate. I have lived a very big life thus far. I got to pursue an education that was really meaningful to me. I've been able to write books that mean a lot to me. I've been recognized for my work in ways that people who've probably worked harder or deserved it more weren't able to access. I have financial freedom, a freedom that I didn't grow up with. And little did I know that this Cookie Monster cake would outshine any other moment in my life. And I think that is the real joy of being able to think about these problems with this new context. When I used to write before, I used to think, oh gosh, what would a critic say? And now I write and I think, what will my son say?
Have you thought, being so deeply entrenched in this work, have you thought about your son's relationship with food and more broadly fast food and how that will all come together for you as a mother?
Yeah, I do. I don't really eat fast food anymore. I haven't had McDonald's in, I think, 15 years, but I had a lifetime of it.
Yeah,
so
right.
Good. There's some things I still like to eat occasionally. I want my son to understand that I respect all the choices he makes, and I want him to understand his choices have consequences. And so if he wants to eat at McDonald's, I'm not going to say, no, you can never do that. That's so evil. But we're going to have honest conversations about how much money the people who make his food make and some of the struggles they have because of that. We're going to talk about how sometimes the foods we eat can harm the environment or harm the people who pick the food, and that it's sometimes hard to make choices that you feel 100% comfortable with, but those are the things that we need to know as people in the world. And that ultimately, whatever choice he makes about, whether he wants to eat at McDonald's all the time or Taco Bell, that he knows that he lives in a world where there are a lot of choices, and that as he gets older, I will respect and appreciate the choices he makes because they're made from his informed position and not just mine. And that's going to be really hard.
Marcia Chatelain, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been great.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
That was Marcia Chatelain and Feed Our Soul founder Adrienne Wilson talking with us about understanding our food sources. I have a question for you. Do you grow your own food? And what is your relationship to fast food? Join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is Dear Truth Be Told, or you can catch us on Instagram at DearTBT. And as always, you can email me at Tonya@deartbt.com. Truth Be Told is a production of TMI Productions and is produced by B.A. Parker, Phyllis Fletcher, Aisha Brown, Enrico Benjamin, and Adama Imeson, in association with Fearless Media. Our theme music is Rest by Otis McDonald and Zora's Moon by Candace Hoyes. Special thanks to Rochelle Roberts and Sam Rafelson. And a big thank you to Heising Simons and the Ford Foundation for funding Truth Be Told. I'm Tonya Mosley. Until next time. Hey, Hudson, what do you want for dinner?
McDonald's.
Of course.